Hey everyone, welcome to Tathastu-ICS. I hope you all are doing good. Well, today we are going to talk about fundamental duties. In our series of Indian polity, the series of Know Your Constitution, we're going to talk about fundamental duties of citizens of India, okay, towards the constitution, towards the nation state, towards the Indian state. Well, every democratic country where there is a constitution, that constitution, the guardian of that constitution are the citizens of that particular country, if the country, the said country, is a democratic country, okay. And that particular constitution is something which gives power to the citizens of that country. In India's case, yes, the constitution of India gives power to the citizens of the country and they empower them to do the rightful things, but it's a two-way relationship, okay. If constitution is doing something for the citizens of India, then the citizen of this country are also expected to do something for the constitution, for the nation. And which is expected from them, so that is to abide by the constitution, to abide by this holy book, by its spirit, by its abiding by the words which are written in this particular book, okay. So today we are going to understand this two-way relationship where the constitution protects, where the constitution empowers the citizens of a country, citizens of the country of India, and the citizens of India are also protecting or safeguarding the values of the constitution, okay. And that, to do that, one basic thing is to abide by the duties, the 11 fundamental duties which are there. Originally there were 10, but now there are 11. So today we are going to get a gist about this particular story and the committees which were related to it, Sardar Singh committee and Justice Verma committee, okay. So let's get started with the introduction. Now these are the fundamental duties. I know it's not very much visible. We will see this in a separate slide and we are going to discuss every fundamental duty line by line comprehensively. I'm not going to leave it key you can read these fundamental duties. I will read it with you. We will discuss it together, but this is the broad introduction. So the concept of fundamental duties in the Indian Constitution draws inspiration from the constitution of former Soviet Union, okay. So when we were covering that particular series, which that particular video which has been made in two parts, the sources of Indian Constitution, in that particular source we have covered that broadly we took our things. The structure of the constitution was taken from Government of India Act 1935 broadly, and then USA and United Kingdom constitution. Other than this, there were various provisions which have been taken from different constitution, and this particular thing, this particular fundamental duty was taken from Soviet Union, because at that time the Soviet Union was following the communist regime and the communist ideology, and the idea of fundamental duties is quite close to it. So I would suggest you to please go and watch that video, okay. So the concept of fundamental duties in the Indian Constitution draws inspiration from the constitution of former Soviet Union. This Soviet Union, after getting disintegrated in 1991, is now Russian Federation, okay. And the first country, there's a good fact that the first democratic country which adopted few duties for its citizens was the country of Japan, okay. Now these duties were introduced into the constitution through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. As I have already told you in last class, that whenever you get confused कि ये 1970 42nd Amendment Act किस particular किस year में आया था, तो just add these two numbers, 4 plus 2 6, okay. So this particular 42nd, this is also called, this particular Amendment Act is called, that it is been said that it is the mini constitution of India, okay. So many changes have been done in this particular Amendment Act, and fundamental duties is also one of the product of this Constitutional Amendment Act, okay. So these duties were introduced in constitution through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 based on the recommendation of Singh committee, Sardar Singh committee, okay. So let me show you. He is Sardar Singh committee, and we are going to talk about him and his recommendations, and the recommendations which have not been accepted, but he was Sardar Singh, okay. And he recommended, on the recommendations which have been given by this particular committee, this fundamental duty has been incorporated in the Constitution of India. Now, originally comprising 10 duties, An additional duty was incorporated by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002, bringing it to the totality of total 11 fundamental duties. So this was specifically about the education of the children between the age of 6 to 14. Okay. These fundamental duties are enumerated in Article 51A, the sole article in Part 4A of the Constitution. So Part 4 deals with the directive principles of the state policy. Article 51 talks about the international peace, and Article 51A is joined to 51, Article 51, and this is the only article which has been allotted to fundamental duties, and all the 11 fundamental duties are written under this article. Okay. Fundamental duties help the courts in examining and determining the constitutional validity of law. Okay, so if a court is somewhere stuck that whether this particular law is it constitutional or not, so it is said that the constitutional courts of India, be it High Court, Supreme Court, or the lower courts of India, they can visit to the fundamental duties or to the suggestions of these fundamental duties, and they can cross check whether this thing syncs in with the idea of India, with the idea of constitution. Okay, so the fundamental duties are confined to citizens only and not to the foreigners. Okay, so when we were talking about fundamental rights, so that fundamental right has been given, there were few fundamental rights which were given to the foreigners also, but this fundamental duty, now there is something which you have to do, and you can't expect a foreigner or a tourist to do something for the country or to do something for the, as I said, that this is a two-way relationship between the constitution of a country and the citizens of that country. Okay, so if it's a two-way relationship between constitution and citizens, then you cannot expect something from the tourists or the people who are temporarily visiting this country or this place. Okay, so that is why the fundamental duties are confined to citizens only and not to the foreigners. Okay, this is an important point. Now let's see that what are these 11 different duties, and we are going, as I said, we are going to talk about them comprehensively one by one. So what are the listed fundamental duties? Number one is to abide by the constitution and respect its ideals and institutions. And what kind of institutions? The national flag and national anthem and all the institutions which are there, and abide by the constitution. So you have to respect what has been written, you have to abide by the constitution, the institutions of India, okay, be it Supreme Court, High Court, Election Commission, and the idea on which this particular nation has been built upon. Okay, and that is the national flag that has been represented in national anthem. Okay, second point is to cherish and follow the noble ideas that inspired the national struggle for freedom. Okay, so we have been enslaved, we have been under the British rule for almost 250 years. Okay, and to get freedom from that particular regime, from that particular rule, there were some ideas on which our freedom struggle was based. Broadly, that was cooperation between different communities. Broadly, that was non-violence. Broadly, that was the mark of ahimsa that has been shown by Mahatma Gandhi and the leaders who are forefathers, the forefathers of this particular country. Okay, so all those noble ideas, be it charkha and everything, those noble ideas that need to be cherished and that needs to be followed. Okay, this is a fundamental duty. This is the duty of the citizens of this time and space, that if there was something, if there was an idea through which we got the freedom, through which we unchained ourselves from the rule of Britishers, the rule of 215 years, if that particular freedom is based on these particular ideas, then these ideas needs to be cherished, these ideas needs to be followed. Okay, number third is to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Okay, so sovereignty means azadi, ki every nation should be independent of its territorial decisions, independent of its financial decisions, independent of its defense, independent of its diplomacy. It should not be relied, or its decisions should not be based on the decisions of some other countries or some other nation state or a ruler which is sitting in some other country. Okay, so there should be a sovereignty. So every citizen, this is the duty of every citizen to uphold and protect the sovereignty, the independence of India, the unity and integrity of India. And how could you do that? The unity and integrity of India by bonding, by not fighting, by not quarreling on few small things which could be avoided. Okay, specifically the brotherhood that needs to be maintained, and that is also one of other fundamental rights. Fourth point is to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Okay, so whenever there is a situation, whenever the situation arises, whenever there is a situation where a person is required to do the national service, that particular person should be ready to do it, and that particular person should be ready to defend the country. Next point is very important. I'll tell you why. To promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic and regional and sectional diversities, to renounce the practices derogatory to the dignity of women. Okay, so this particular line, to renounce the practices, those practices which are derogatory to the dignity of women, this is something which has been avoided by many aspirants. Okay, because generally we just start to read this particular line, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood, and then our conscious and subconscious mind just skips the last line. And it has been asked in many test series and sometimes in the UPSC also that this particular thing, safeguarding the dignity of a woman, is it a part of fundamental duty or not? So the answer is yes, it is a part of fundamental duty. So this is an important line. Before this, another important point is to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending if there is any kind of religious divide, if there is any kind of, not specifically divide, if there is a religious distinction between the two people, there is a religious diversity, to be specific, religious diversity, linguistic diversity, regional, sectional diversities, then these diversities need to be overcome, and we have to walk on the path where we talk about the unity in diversity. Okay, so we need to walk on that concept, and we have to promote the harmony and that spirit of brotherhood, which we also call the fraternity. Okay, which Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says that it's a trilogy where if there is no liberty, then there is no equality, and if there is no brotherhood, then both the things cannot be saved. Okay, so every point is, other 2 points are dependent on the solidity of the third point or the third angle. Okay, another point is sixth point, sixth fundamental duty is to value and preserve the rich heritage of the country's composite culture. Okay, so we have a culture, India is very diverse. कई बार ऐसा बोला जाता है, it has been often said that India is very big. Okay, and India is very big in its numbers, India is very big in its diversity, India is very big in its idea. Okay, so there is a culture which has been followed in a southern village of Goa. Okay, then there is a culture which has been followed in Manipur and Nagaland. Then there are tribals who are situated in Gujarat, and the tribals of Gujarat follow different practices from the tribals who are situated in the east of India in Chhattisgarh. Okay, on the north of it there is Ladakh, there is Jammu, there is Kashmir, and then there is Rameshwaram. So this diversity and the culture, which is also very much diverse, that needs to be preserved. Okay, so to value and preserve the rich heritage of the country's composite culture. Okay, and not only this, the idea, be it the Chola idea of Tamil Nadu, okay, the Chandela idea of the central India. So these are the ideas, these are the histories, rich history and rich culture of India, ancient and medieval, that also needs to be preserved. Another point is to protect and improve natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. Okay, so living creatures doesn't limit us to the human beings only. Okay, in living creature there is bird, in living creature there are animals, in living creature there are plants also. Okay, so that needs to be preserved, and by preserving plants you will look after the natural environment, and then the forest and the lakes and the rivers and the wildlife. So eventually everything which has life in it, everything which is important for the collective survival of the earth, that needs to be preserved, and not and we work on the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam with G20. We all are familiar with this word. The whole world is one family, and we consider the whole world is one family. And specifically after the climate change and the devastating impact of climate change, now we know that yes, this if something happens in one part of the country, something which is unfortunate, be it earthquake, be it is the glaciers which just melts, okay, so it has its impact on different part of the world also. Okay, so that needs to be product, and specifically in India that needs to be improved. Okay, at least the citizens of India, they have the sway over the land, over the forest, over the parks of India, over the MCD parks of India, over the parks which are situated in Delhi, Mumbai and Lucknow. Okay, so that needs to be preserved. Another 8th fundamental duty is to develop scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of inquiry and reform. Okay, develop scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. Scientific temper is by asking genuine questions, by being not negatively critical, but yes, by asking some questions, because in democracy, and there should be a proper vaad vivad. Okay, there should be there should be a proper samvad. Okay, ऐसे कोई वाद विवाद ना हो, there should be a proper samvad, a dialogue. And in India, the idea of India is broadly on the idea of dialogue. Okay, कि जो इतनी सारी किताबें हमारे ancient और medieval times में लिखी गई हैं, all have been written in the form of dialogue. Okay, there is a question which has been asked by a male by a wife, and then that has been answered by a husband. There's a question which has been asked by a student, and then it has been answered by a guru, and that has been compiled. Okay, so there is an idea of question and answering and the reasoning, and then you question. The whole story of Mahabharata revolves around the question and the confusions which have been asked, the questions which have been asked by Arjuna to the Krishna, and then Krishna answers it, and then that particular thing is also in a dialogue form. Okay, तो संवाद की जरूरत है, and with that संवाद, with that questioning, you develop a tendency of scientific temper, a humanism and a spirit of inquiry and reform. Okay, and for any vibrant democracy, for any any developing country to go towards a place of a developed country, you must have these kind of things. Okay, another thing is to safeguard public property and abjure violence. Okay, so you have given fundamental right. There are DPSPs, which is a moral there should be some moral things which needs to be done for the people of the country, though the government is not very much answerable for them. But yes, in democracy, people can vote you out. Okay, so there are fundamental right, there's a constitution specifically, and then in constitution there is a preamble, there's a fundamental right, and there are things which are there for people. And then if people are not very much happy with their governments or with their managements, with their companies, then they have the right to peacefully protest. Okay, but if you have given that right to peacefully protest, if you have given that right to register your grievances, then that should not turn into a violent incident. Okay, that should not hamper the public properties which are there, which belongs to everyone, be it the buses, be it the trains. And we have seen this in communal tensions, in the reservation quota things. When they have been asked from the government, the first thing which has been targeted is the public property which belongs to the people of India, which belongs to the citizen of India. Okay, so that needs to be safeguarded. It is one of the fundamental duty. 10th fundamental duty is to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher level of endeavor and achievement. Okay, strive to try towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. Okay, so be it sports, be it scientific development, be it this AI, be it nanotech, be it anything. Okay, be it cricket, be it football, be it volleyball. There are different things, and then there are individual things also. Okay, chess, and in any sphere, be it collective collective fields or the individual fields, all of us should try to excel in that particular field. And if we excel, the India excels. And the 11th fundamental duty, which has been added in 2002, is to provide opportunity for education. A person should provide opportunity for education to his child or ward between the age of 6 to 14. Now this is very much important, but because in DPSP there is a different number. What is that different number? Please write it down to the comment section. For fundamental duty, there is a age gap between 6 to 14 years. Okay, added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002. Okay. So these were the 11 fundamental rights. We've seen what is the basic feature of fundamental duty, and then what are different 11 fundamental rights, and what does the Constitution and what does these duties expect from us. Okay. Now these fundamental duties have been recommended by Swaran Singh committee. Okay, this was Sardar Swaran Singh. Now he was in 1947. He has a very rich history. He is called, and he is one of the longest serving union ministers of India. In 1947, he was the first home minister of the state of Punjab. Then in 1952, he has been called in center. He resigned in 1952 because Jawaharlal Nehru, the then Prime Minister of India, he called him to be the union minister at the center, and then he became the defense minister of India also. Then he became the ambassador also. Okay, so that is why he is one of the longest serving union minister, and he was that competent also. It was during internal emergency from 1975 to 1977 that the need of these fundamental duties was strongly felt. Okay, and this idea of fundamental duty is very much categorically written in the Soviet Union idea, and then it is quite close to the power which is quite authoritative. Okay, and in 1976, when this particular fundamental duty has been incorporated in the Constitution of India in 1976, so this was a time but between 1975 to 1977, which was a time of internal emergency. Okay, so when this was imposed, there were few duties which have been demanded, and this particular committee was asked to make recommendations. As a result, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 added Part 4A under Article 51. This article originally contained 10 fundamental duties for citizens, but it was later expanded to 11, as we have already discussed it. Okay, the committee initially suggested 8 fundamental duties, but this 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act included 10 of them. Okay, now let's discuss what were those other recommendations which have not been inculcated by the government of India and by Indira Gandhi ji when this particular in this particular year 1976 emergency was on, and Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. So these were the duties which have been recommended, but they have not been included in Indian Constitution. Number 1 is penalties for non-performance. Okay, so there should be penalties for not fulfilling fundamental duties. अगर कुछ fundamental duties हैं आपकी वही, और if you are not fulfilling them, then you would be called for a penalty, you would be called for a punishment, and that punishment shouldn't be challenged in the court of law. Now this has also been recommended. Okay, the law imposing such penalties should not be questioned in courts. Okay, and another thing which was recommended is tax payment as a duty. Okay, paying taxes should be considered as a fundamental duty. So these were the recommendations which were given by Dr. Sardar Swaran Singh ji and his committee, but they have not been included in the Constitution of India under Article 51A as a fundamental right. Then there is another very important committee, Justice J.S. Verma committee. Now he was the Chief Justice. He was the Chief Justice of India in late 90s. Okay, and in 1998 the government of India established Justice J.S. Verma committee. Now why was this committee was formed? The objective was developing a strategy and methodology for implementing a nationwide program to teach fundamental duties in every educational institution. Okay, so in every educational institution there should be a procedure to let people know about their fundamental duties. So this was the idea, which when this particular the objective of forming this particular committee was to how to make the educational institutions of the country be aware of the fundamental duties. Okay. And then there were other things also. The suggestions which were given were, there were recommendations. This particular GS Verma committee gave recommendations to the scientist community of India also, to the cinematography committee of India also. Okay, not the committee, the people. They gave recommendation to different peoples. Okay, not exactly these which I said, but to the different communities who are working in different sectors. They gave recommendations to them, and broadly it was for the education institutions and the professionals who are working in the offices. So it identified the presence of legal provision for implementing certain fundamental duties, such as those outlined in Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Okay, that is why, in simple terms, if we understand by looking at these fundamental duties and 11 fundamental duties and the recommendations which have been given by different committees, one thing which can be seen, that is, as I said earlier, that every country's constitution is its rule book, and the people who live in that country are the guardians of that rule book. Okay, so there is a constitution, and the people are supposed to protect that constitution by abiding what has been written in that particular constitution. In the case of India, the constitution was made for the people in their name, so the constitution aims to give power to the citizens of that country. Okay, they give power to explore to explore what they actually can do, not only for the country but for themselves also. For themselves, for their family, for the people who are around there, and obviously for the country also, and eventually Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the earth is one family, for whole of the world also. Okay, but if we talk about the constitution and the relationship between the citizens and the constitution, then in the case of India, the constitution was made for the people in their name, so the constitution aims to give power to the citizens, but it's a two-way street. Okay, it's a two-way relationship where citizens also give power to the constitution. And how will they give power to the constitution? By abiding it. How will they give power to the constitution? By absolutely following what has been written, what is legally appropriate as a citizen of the country. Okay, to do this by following the rules, protecting the constitution, and making it more meaningful through their words and their actions. Okay, and what are those words, what are those actions? By living in a peaceful environment, by maintaining the brotherhood, by not using few things or not doing things which are derogatory to the respect of women, by cherishing the noble ideas and the institutions of India, by following, by respecting the national flag, the national anthem, and other things like this. If we do this, if we actually, what the power which has been given by the Constitution of India, if we also abide by that constitution, then with this two-way relationship, we are fulfilling our fundamental duties, and we are the true citizens of India who are taking care of India also, who are taking care of Bharat Mata also. Okay, so this is it for today. We are ending this particular session. We'll meet in the other class. We'll meet in other video of Know Your Constitution. Until then, take care. Bye bye. Like the video if you have liked it, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much.